From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode 548 for January 27th, 2025. I recorded a little bit before. My name is Mike Hurley, and I'm joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Mike. Happy Monday.
So we'll get to this in a minute, but we're recording early. I have a Snell Talk question for you that comes from Brian, who wants to know,
Hi, Brian.
in the new Summing Up segment from last week, what was the mountain image used as the wallpaper that was on the phone?
Yes, thank you, Brian. So basically, on last week on Monday morning, I got up and I saw that we had a new segment, and also Stephen Hackett sent us another Apple Intelligence summary to laugh at, and I thought maybe we could make like an Apple Intelligence summary, the artwork for Summing Up, and so I spent half an hour before recording Upgrade in Photoshop making the Summing Up image. And that's literally the lock screen image on my phone, because that's literally my phone. It is Milford Sound in New Zealand, South Island. It's a fjord, basically. And it's a live photo. So when my phone wakes up, not only do you see the beautiful New Zealand mountains and all that, you see some water splashing at the bottom, like splashing on the boat and stuff. And it was taken moments before a giant splash completely covered my body with water.
Do you have a live photo of that happening?
I have some non-live photos. I don't think I have. Oh, actually, I think I have a video of the water hitting the camera.
Amazing. Oh, that's
the
good
iPhone
times.
Camera. Yeah, it was great trip. So anyway, that's what that is, Brian.
That was nice.
Literally
artwork,
my
by
phone.
the way. You did a good job with that. You did a really good job with that.
It doesn't withstand close scrutiny. There's some things about it that I had to move around. But I thought for a quick chapter art thing, it was good enough. So
we're breaking the tradition today, by the way. We don't. I have something about iOS 18 today, but we're not actually going to talk about notification summaries. At least that's not the plan.
All right.
Like we don't have anything on the BBC that's happened in the last couple of days.
Fine.
So
we're
all good on that.
Okay.
If you would like to send in a Snell Talk question of your own, please go to upgradefeedback.com and you can do that. So as previously mentioned in the opening, we're recording this one a little early. We're recording on the 23rd of November.
Nope. It's January, Mike. It's not that early.
Where am I?
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there.
Take me back.
It's the 23rd.
It's the 23rd of November.
It's the 23rd of January, so it's just a few days, but it's before the weekend. We don't know what was in Mark Gurman's newsletter on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's just we're out of time here for travel reasons. Yeah. I have a trip, and there was no way to schedule this recording at a better time. So apologies for that, but we got a lot to talk about.
We do, actually. I've been saving up like a month's worth of rumors because we've had too many other topics. We had too much. Yeah. We have too many topics about notification summaries to talk about, so we haven't been able to do any rounding up of rumors. So there are wild horses everywhere, and the two of us have got to handle that one later on in the episode.
All right.
But usually when we're recording in advance, so I don't really like to make such a big thing out of it because it's like, I don't know. It's stuff that the listener doesn't really particularly need to know.
Yeah, we call that inside baseball. It's like, when we record and how we do all that sort of doesn't matter because you just get the episode. Other than to explain like, well, why didn't they talk about Mark Gurman's newsletter? The answer is we recorded early. It feels even more so right now, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to talk about TikTok because that's like follow up from last time. But I just think that like, oh, man, it's rough. This week has been tough, and I feel like a lot of people in our audience right now feel bad, and I understand it, and a lot of people feel threatened by the new U.S. administration and its policies. Whether you live in the U.S. or not, which for me, is like I hate that I am depressed this week about a country that's not my own and like how it could affect me. You know what I mean? Like that is its own thing. And I just want to say, for those people that are feeling it right now, we're thinking of you, especially those listeners of ours who are part of the LGBTQ community and the Relay LGBTQ community, of which I'm proud that we have.
Yes.
Like I can see that people are hurting. I can see that people are like spiraling right now, and it's tough because I just wish that, like, something I don't understand, and I don't know if I'll ever truly understand it, but I don't understand why people don't feel the same way as me, which is I just wished that people could just allow everybody else to just live as people. Like we're all people and we're all in the world together. And I just think it's everybody is happier and things are easier when we're kind to one another and accepting of each other. And like from all walks of life. Like this is not an I'm like not trying to like throw bombs at someone and not like just I just wished everyone could just get
Right.
along. And
Yeah,
and it's
but
but it
right now
seems
there
like it can't.
yeah, right now there feels like there are a lot of people who are they feel their very existence feels under siege, and that's it's terrible. It's
Mm-hmm.
terrible. I wanted to throw in as well uh, what we've been seeing this week post the inauguration. So last week, I guess we're out of time
Yeah.
here. A lot of disappointment in Tim Cook right now for attending the inauguration after donating $1 million for it. And then they, of course, moved it so to inside where everybody got to be really close together and in lots of photographs. And I absolutely understand the disappointment in Tim Cook, given that he's present around the beginning of this new administration. I also think that disappointment represents some larger and more complicated thoughts about Tim Cook and about Apple and about what it's all about. And it is complicated. And I do think we should talk about it on that kind of a very upgrade kind of approach to that soon. But
Not
this
yet.
is not this is not the moment. I'm not really ready to talk about it yet, but I do think that we need to talk about the roots of the disappointment and what Tim Cook is doing and Apple's place in the world and all of that. And I think we will get there
Yeah.
soon, but
I think
not
like
today.
maybe there's something to say that like for all of us as upgradians, like we need to think about like what do we like about Apple and and like think about that. And because I know this has been a thing that me and you have been feeling for a while anyway, right? Like with all the lawyer up stuff and
Mm-hmm.
just like what do we like and why and how do we like
I,
focus on that
I,
where we
I
can.
yeah, I think it's clear over the 10 plus years of this podcast that there are lots of things that Apple and Apple executives do that are at the very least questionable in terms of the what the company states as its, benevolent make the world a better place belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about it in the past. We will talk about it again, but I definitely see in a lot of people right now this conflict happening where there's the Apple they want to believe in, and this is a moment that shows them that that is not really what the Apple Corporation actually
Yeah.
is. And there's a lot of understandable upset and cognitive dissonance, and it all makes sense. And I am, I really feel for everybody who's hurting right now, and we will talk about this more, but not today.
So let's actually talk about where we are with TikTok follow up wise.
Okay.
So Donald Trump signed an executive order to suspend the TikTok ban for 75 days, in which a path forward is to be determined by a sale of TikTok's US operations to a US thing. like you're not really sure what that is yet. And all of this is kind of like supposedly there's a ban and supposedly there'll be a sale because
Mm-hmm.
it is kind of unclear at this stage if the president can do any of this. Like, essentially, from what I've been able to understand from the good reading that I've been doing, and I'll put links in the show notes, Trump is essentially asking the Department of Justice not to enforce a law and not to punish anyone that breaks it during this time period, but actually can't. That isn't the law, right?
Yeah.
Like, an executive order cannot allow for this, is the best that I can understand. It's kind of just like, hey, we're all friends here. you know, it's a very interesting situation, and again, it's like also not what he clearly promised TikTok he would do, right? Because TikTok was like, oh, glorious leaders giving us 90 days, which it wasn't, and he'll save TikTok, which he hasn't, and we're in this
Right.
interesting like not. I think everyone is kind of like doesn't know what to do right now, so it's
Yeah.
just like
Well,
going along
and
with it.
and it is kind of funny and ridiculous and also deadly serious, because
Mm-hmm.
what we're dealing with here is somebody who is the president of the United States and has a lot of very specific powers, but is behaving as if they have all the powers, which, he said, again, listen to what the man says. He said he would be a dictator on day one.
Yep.
He is saying the law enforcement agency of the United States shouldn't enforce the law. He's saying that he's granted a 75-day whatever that is not in the law. That is not what it's meant for. There's a 90-day delay that's meant for if an ongoing negotiation is happening, which there still isn't. And then he's also throwing out kind of bizarre statements like, we'll do a deal where it's 50-50. The U.S. government will own half of it and China can own half of it, which is, again, not against the law. The law says it's got to be less than 20% Chinese ownership, but it's got to be a majority ownership. And then is it the U.S. government? At some points he said, well, the U.S. government will own it. And it's basically saying, look, this is a shakedown. Somebody's gonna put in a few $billions to buy TikTok, but the U.S. government will own half, so that when it sells, the government will make money, because that's what we do now, is we regulate foreign companies in order to shake them down for money. That's all going on here. And then that is not the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part is who's going to stop him. The answer is, I guess, courts, except so many of the courts, especially the higher level courts, are full of Trump appointees from the last time. Are they going to stop him, or are they going to let him do whatever he wants? Is there a rule of law, or isn't there? Unknown, completely unknown. And then there's Congress, which, like, Congress could be the answer here, but again, Congress
maybe I
very...
don't know enough about American politics, right? But like, if you're a congressperson or you're a senator, there you go, a Senate person,
yeah,
right?
Thing.
He is undermining your job.
Yeah, they all voted for this. It was
yes.
a vast majority of the House and Senate voted for this. So
like,
he's undermining them on multiple levels.
Part of the party, but if you don't do anything about this, or if you change your kind of tact on it, you're essentially saying you are not important. Right.
Yeah, this is right. That's definitely an aspect of it. Is can you ignore them, or do they get on side? I think maybe they don't, because everything is fractious, especially in the House of Representatives, where the majority is so thin. You have to get everybody to agree to change the law. So that's a problem. And then I didn't even mention, if the U.S. government owned a social media company, it would be subject to the First Amendment, which means that there could literally be no rules on it, because the government can't control speech.
Oh, that's great. Oh, man, that's incredible. I had not thought of that. That is an incredible thing. And look, you know what though, Jason? I don't think he means the government, but sometimes it's just so hard to understand.
He means Larry Ellison what he's saying. Elon Musk or something is what he means.
It's impossible to. So actually, about that, there is the Wall Street Journal had some reporting that apparently China is now signaling that they'd be willing to look at a deal. I think they did their best and realized they don't have a choice anymore, right? Like that they took it as far as they could, and it's all fallen together.
It's a negotiation thing, right? You say absolutely not, and then you get to this point, and they're like, well,
we might as well do something about this. Nothing's been put together at the time of recording, but right now it kind of seems like everyone with money is willing to buy this, from Mr. Beast to Larry Ellison to, of course, Elon Musk.
Nobody would sell something as powerful as TikTok unless forced to do so, right?
Yeah.
Nobody would do
it's that. Something you would never sell this. Yeah, you're completely right. There is no... It's like, would Meta sell off Instagram? Like, would they just do that? No, they wouldn't do that. That's insane to do.
For any price, they wouldn't do it. And what are they buying? That's the other thing here, right? What are you buying if you buy the U.S. TikTok? Are you buying an empty bag that says TikTok on it? Is that what you're buying?
I think so. Yes, I think so. Because I think part of the original thing is that the algorithm would not be for sale here. So this actually leads me to a couple of questions that I have, like in this scenario. So let's say, I think it's the most likely outcome at this point is that an American TikTok is created, right? I think that is the most likely thing, and that everybody who has TikTok in the US is migrated to this new TikTok somehow, right?
And
if
and
this
then
happens, is this TikTok USA only, or does TikTok USA get to see stuff from around
It
the
is.
world and vice versa?
It's just people doing dances to Party in the USA.
Right.
That's
Like
it.
what is and
That's it.
then so then imagine this, right? So I'm assuming TikTok USA is its absolute own thing, because otherwise what's the point, right? So like it is a container of its own. Does TikTok USA then become available also in other countries?
Well, this is the mystery, right? This is the big mystery: is TikTok in the USA run by this, but does it interlink so that their videos appear elsewhere and other videos from around the world appear in this, but they're algorithmically ranked differently because they're being ranked like this, and this becomes. And first off, that's a huge engineering challenge, right? To
Yeah.
be like you're of our TikTok or not. The other question is, again, what does it really mean? They could also say, well, now the US owns it and it's on US soil for its servers, but otherwise it's completely just part of TikTok around the world, in which case what are we even doing here? But again, what are we even doing here?
It's
It's a
like there
yeah.
may be answers to these questions in that law, but that law's too much for me to understand, honestly. So like I'm kind
Mm.
of just for me, and also there might be an answer, but what is it? It does. We'll just
But
have
does
to
it
wait and
matter?
see. But
Yeah.
like this is like the way, however this unfolds is like a fascinating scenario
So
to
this is
me.
going to be my prediction right now. I'm just going to
Go
throw
for
this
it.
out there. What's
Yes,
going to
do it.
happen is they're going to get a deal. The
Yeah,
Chinese government has already said, we're not going to stop a company from selling things, which was not their policy before. So ByteDance is like, all right, in order for us to stay alive in the U.S., we're going to have to sell the U.S. interest to somebody, and they will line up a deal in the next month. They will line up a deal with, maybe there will be bidders, right?
there'll
Because it
definitely
sounds
be
like
better. Yeah.
there are all sorts of different. Well, I mean, I say maybe there will be bidders because it's possible that they'll literally just hand it to a favored friend.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I do think that there are a bunch of American companies that will offer
That
money
want
for
it.
this,
Yeah.
and that a deal will be put together, and that deal. My prediction is that deal will not satisfy the law, and that Trump will then challenge Congress to change the law. He's got a deal. Now they need to pass the changes to approve it to save TikTok. And he basically puts it in their hands to be blamed if it fails. That's my prediction. Is that it will end up being the buck will be passed elsewhere for the saving or killing of TikTok in the US.
I really don't know why we're going through all of this.
I don't
Like,
know.
why didn't he just let it go? He'd already won the election. Why did he need to be the savior of TikTok? Like, just let it go.
Yeah, especially since he started all of this. I don't know. I mean,
Yes,
you're dealing with that guy's psychology. It's very hard to say. I mean, my feeling is that he has an intern or somebody who started posting on TikTok, and people said nice things about him on TikTok, and so now he's like, oh, that's a place where people like me. Maybe I could save it.
that's you
And
know
he likes
what.
being seen as
That's
this
it.
as the saver of things. And but what's bizarre here is, right, he started this because he said the Chinese Communist Party is controlling the minds of our children. That's basically what he said to begin with. And now he's
Yeah,
going to come and go, no, it's fine, it's fine. I don't know. It makes him. I think really it's just because Biden signed it, and so he wants to come in and undo everything that Biden did. So even if he was continuing, like there's a whole thing. Okay, this is Liftoff, a podcast that is not retired but only in hiatus on Relay FM. Liftoff, we covered the Trump administration the first time about their policies for space. And what's interesting is a lot of those policies were continued by the Biden administration. And what it sounds like is happening now is that the new Trump administration is coming in and saying, oh, those space policies are terrible. They're Biden policies. We're going to get rid of them. And it's like, you started them. But
but
nope,
this is
nope,
just
doesn't
politics, right?
matter.
Like we're having a
Yeah.
lot of that here, where the conservatives are like saying to Labor, "Look at this terrible thing that happened." They're like, "But
It's like,
you
yes,
were in
yes.
power then." But
Yeah,
it's like,
no,
no,
that's
you did
I've been
this.
following that story where it's like this,
There's
who will
multiple
stand up
stories
for this
now.
thing that's been happening for years and
Yes,
years and years. It's like, weren't you guys in power for a decade? And it's like,
yes.
well, don't talk about that. So yeah,
It's like, no, the government's the problem, and you're the government. It's like, okay, I guess, but that's all this stuff is. It's just blame games. I'm
yep,
this
yep.
TikTok story like is interesting to me because I don't know where it's gonna go, and it
Feels
will
like,
affect a lot of people.
well, and it's important not just because it's TikTok and silly dances and stuff like that. It's important because it will help define what the new Trump administration's relationship to China is, and what the new Trump's administration to the relationship with the tech industry is. It will
Yeah.
help define
Which is
those.
clearly different to the first administration, right? We can see that
Thus
already.
far, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, thus far. We'll see where it goes, but it's starting off with a bang.
Mm-hmm. Let's do some follow up.
Okay.
iOS 18.3 is in release candidate. And in the release candidate, it enables Apple Intelligence by default.
Right.
So currently, when you with 18.1 and 18.2, during the setup process, you're asked if you want to do this, and you can choose to do this. Now, I think maybe at point 1 you have to go do it on your own, but point 2 it's like, hey, do you want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
But with 18.3, it doesn't ask you anymore. It just starts the process of onboarding you to Apple Intelligence. You can disable it, but you have to set it up first, then go into settings and disable it.
Mm-hmm.
It is still being labeled as a beta.
Yeah. See, I don't have a problem with Apple turning features on. I know some people do, but like if you don't turn it on, no one will ever turn it on.
Yeah.
And so if you want people to use your feature, you turn it on and then you let people turn it off.
This is a curious one to do it on because this is also the beta where they're turning off some features.
Right. Well, they're turning off a bunch of summary things and all of that. Here, well, so in general, I'm not talking about 18.3. I'm just in general, I think you do need to turn things on because otherwise nobody will find it. Like you do need to say, hey, there's a new feature. And so I understand what they're going for here. Yes, you could argue that what they need to do is say, hey, here's a new feature. Would you like to turn it on? But I can understand them saying, no, we're going to turn it on. And then if you don't like it, you can turn it off because this is a major part of the OS experience now. I get all that. However, coming on the heels of them turning off temporarily, supposedly news summaries and all of that in this beta, but especially on the heels of Apple using as its defense for the terrible summaries and notifications but we'll remind you in a very condescending way. The statement says, we'll remind you this is a beta. And the idea there is, don't judge us. We told you this was a beta. You know what beta means. It means anything goes and things can be broken. And then at the end of that condescending statement, they say, we're looking forward to your feedback about it. It's very much like, hey, dummy, it's a beta. You can't criticize us. Just send us file a radar, right? Like it's essentially the attitude that I got from that statement. It's very much hiding under the beta, even though it's in shipping software, which the whole argument about how do you call something a beta feature inside a shipping version of the OS? Like, but certainly if you still call it a beta and you turn it on, like why? What does beta mean at that point? What does it even mean? Because you can't. I think they already can't hide behind the word beta because of all the ads and all the ways that they push this stuff. But if they turn it on by default, like what are we even doing here? The beta is meaningless. It means a new feature that doesn't work right, but you have to deal with it anyway. It's ridiculous.
So on the last episode in Ask Upgrade, we were talking about retro Macs that we would like to be modernized. And we had a couple of people write in about this. Holly wrote in to say, last week you called out wanting the 12-inch MacBook and the G4 iMac as hardware designs you'd love to see return. I had assumed one of you would refer to the colorful clamshell iBook G3 series and was disappointed it wasn't included. It made me wonder if you feel there is room in the Apple laptop lineup for the return of such colors in the MacBook Air, assuming they could handle the variety of options necessary to do so. What kind of colors could the Color choose? It's a good point because we are so often talking about color.
About colored products. Well,
we didn't do that.
I feel very strongly that the MacBook Air should have colors, and they probably should just be the iMac colors.
The current iMac colors? Yeah, that would be a good start, at least,
Yeah, I mean, we know they can anodize aluminum in those colors. That might be a fun thing to do. Now, Holly, the reason that we didn't mention the clamshell iBook G3 is because because the question was, what would you like to use upgraded with modern parts? And I do not want to use the big toilet seat iBook. Like it was a different time. It was huge. It was weird. My mom had one. And when
Yeah.
my parents sold the house I grew up in, and they were full-time motorhomers for 11 years. And for the first few years of that, that was the computer. She sent email. She would
Yep.
carry it with the little handle. She'd carry it up to the office at the various parks because there was no Wi-Fi in most of these motorhome parks at that point. And they would have like a line you could plug into to dial in to the internet in order to get your email. I'm like, I have fond memories of the clamshell iBook, but I would not want one. However, the colors, yes, the colors on it are really nice, and they had lots of them. There was tangerine, and there was a blue, and then they had like later there was like a green, and they're cute. I would love something like that back in the MacBook Air line, but it's I wouldn't bring it back. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's the colors are fun, the overall shape. It's kind of like for me of why did I say the G4 instead of the G3, right? I really love the iMac G3.
Yeah,
I
I
love
don't
the
need a
colors and
CRT on my desk anymore, or
that's
a big. What would
exactly
be in it?
it.
Would there be like a
Yes.
terrarium in the back where you grow things,
The
or an
physical
aquarium where?
shape is the
Mm,
problem. Where like
yeah, that's
a,
right.
a G3 iBook, I don't think that's going in my bag. Like I don't
No,
think I
it's
can I can't
huge.
think I can do that.
It's
Yeah.
huge. You can't. And so
Hmm.
that's the G4 is an adaptable thing, and that's why I mentioned the 12-inch MacBook is that I could see that very shape with modern hardware in it. But I do appreciate Holly pivoting in the middle of this question to a better question, which is colors in MacBook Air. And yeah, I just would like some bright colors. I know it's not for everyone. I bought a midnight. My MacBook Pro now is a space black. This would make you think that I like to pretend that I'm Batman or something. But
You do.
the truth is, if there was a bright blue or a bright orange like those iMac colors, I would have gotten that. I got the midnight because I'm so tired of silver laptops. I'm just tired of them. They're great. They're a classic. It's a classic look, but I'm just like, it's like every other Apple laptop forever and ever, and I like something different. But
Mm.
if I was given the option of buying an orange or a blue laptop, bright blue, not blue so dark that it looks like black, except in certain light where it looks sort of blue, which is what Midnight is, I would do it. But they don't offer those.
Leroy wrote in to say, do you think it's possible for someone to make a G4 base with something like a VESA mount so it could hold a modern iMac to create Mike's dream computer? Now, that would be fun. But what I will say though is I've seen a bunch of these things online, I don't know, over the last 6 months or so of people taking the G4 and doing stuff with it. I will put a link in the show notes to a video from a YouTube channel called Action Retro. This is one of the ones that I'd seen, where this YouTuber is essentially has been putting new guts in a G4 for a long time. They did an M2 MacBook Air, and now they've done it with the M4 MacBook Air. So
Mm-hmm.
they have created an iMac G4 powered by an M4. It's fantastic. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about that video. My big issue with it is the panel, because I would want to put a Retina panel in there.
So I was trying to find this, but I had seen on Threads a while ago someone who was going through the process, and they had done it, of replacing the screen with a new screen.
Yeah.
Like they had actually, it was bigger and it was LCD, and they had done a bunch of stuff to like weight it correctly. Like it was a long process that they were going through. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even someone I was following because that's how the algorithm. It just every time this guy had an update, I would see it. And so like people, this is a project that people undergo because of how cool this computer is, and
Yeah.
so like there are a
Because
lot of people that do this.
I think it's the best Mac design, the single best Mac design. It's beautiful. The reason that it didn't continue, I'm going to say this again because we said it last week, is screens got bigger and they're too heavy. And the only way to counter it is to make the base heavy. And Apple decided that that was the amount of weight you'd have to put in a base to put even a modern iMac on an arm above it would be a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
we're talking
that's
like
a heavy computer. Yeah.
it's like how kids like you got the basketball hoop you can put in the driveway and you got to have sandbags on it or they fill it with water. I mean, it's like that. You have to have weight at the bottom so that it doesn't tip over. And that's clearly Apple's designers looked at where screens were going and said, we can't keep this design. As great as it is,
Mm.
we can't keep it going. But I love it. It's essentially a laptop. I mean, that's the beauty of it, is it's essentially a laptop. But even our laptop screens, you know, are creeping up to be G4 iMac size at this point. So you could do it. It would basically be like a MacBook Air or Pro inside a G4. There's plenty of room inside. That's the funny thing. There's plenty of room inside the half a volleyball down at the bottom. You just got to have the weight down there so that it doesn't tip over.
Mm-hmm. So far in this episode today, we've had some fun. We've had some laughs. We've spoken about colors and computers. We've had some big discussions, right? We've been talking about some big stuff,
deep
some
thoughts,
little stuff, deep thoughts. If you've enjoyed this conversation so far, let me tell you, there's even more of this show than you may have
every
thought.
week,
every single week for subscribers of Upgrade Plus. With Upgrade Plus, you get no ads in the show, so you wouldn't hear this. You get longer ad-free episodes every single week. There's going to be ads later on in the show. You wouldn't hear them if you had Upgrade Plus. You get tons of bonus content. We have 2 monthly members-only shows for Relay listeners that are behind-the-scenes kind of content and interviews with your favorite Relay hosts. You get access to the Relay members Discord, which is a great community. And I wanted to mention something. If you've been thinking, I've heard him talk about this, I don't know if I'd want it. Our platform provider, Memberful, who we use for all of our membership stuff, they consistently tell us, and Stephen was telling me, just had a call with them, that we have incredibly low churn. And what that means is basically when people sign up to become a member, they stay subscribed. Like, they don't cancel. Like, that they are always, Memberful is always really surprised at just how incredibly low our churn is, because people like what they get when they sign up for one of our memberships. And I can tell you, Upgrade Plus is a good time. Today, I'm very excited to talk about the fact that Jason has canceled Netflix. I saw you post this on Blue Sky. Yeah, Jason churned out on Netflix, but he didn't cancel Upgrade Plus. So you can go to getupgradeplus.com. That is getupgradeplus.com. You can sign up. You can get a monthly or annual plan. You'll get tons more stuff, and you'll be helping support the show, which we greatly appreciate. So that's getupgradeplus.com. Jason, it's time to lawyer up.
Oh, clunk, clunk.
Quick one today. It's a quick one, but
I
couldn't not do it. The UK government has announced that the Competitions and Markets Authority, the CMA, don't get it confused with the DMA, has opened an investigation into mobile ecosystems,
yes, of course,
here, to determine if Apple and Google exert too much control. Does this sound familiar? I want to read from the government's website. 2 investigations, one into Apple and another into Google, which I do appreciate, by the way. They are separate investigations, right? Like, I like that, because there's a way that you could just do this broad thing. Separate investigations that will assess in parallel these firms' position in their respective mobile ecosystems, which include the operating systems, app stores, and browsers that operate on mobile devices. The investigations will explore the impact on people who use mobile devices and the thousands of businesses developing innovative services or content, such as apps for these devices. Essentially, it sounds like the UK version of the DMA.
Yeah.
This is what this is beginning. There is a deadline for this investigation to conclude in October. So we can take a breather on this a bit. Here's what I'll say. I'm interested about this. I'm a little bit surprised in one way, but not in the other. And what I'll say is, one of the big things that the government here is talking about right now is trying to make the UK a place for investment and growth. Like, we're trying to get businesses. So when I initially saw this, I was like, that's a surprise. Like, to kind of put the hammer down on Apple and Google. But then when I think about it from the other side of, like, unless they are using this as an opportunity to try and encourage more varied business development on these platforms. So all these things are just completely unrelated, and this was going to happen anyway, no matter what the government says. So
and it's labor, so they're more inclined to regulate than the Tories were.
It's honestly, it's hard to tell right now. I know, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, Labor bad.
I read Ian Dunn's newsletter. I know what's going on.
And also, the other thing is, yesterday, this is the thing that was weird to me, is yesterday, the CMA chief changed. So, like, it's a weird thing to do this, and now the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority, the old lit person is out, and the new person coming in worked at Amazon previous.
Of course.
So I don't know if it's obviously unrelated, but it's like, does this chief of the CMA have the same hunger for this? I
Hmm.
don't know.
DMA CMA, I love it. This is great. We spent a lot of money on that lawyer up art, and I'm glad that we get to keep using it
Yep,
forever and
yep,
ever
yep.
and ever.
So
Hmm.
yeah, interesting times.
Yeah.
The reason we have been the whole point of this is we have been saying this was going to happen, right? Like
Yeah.
we have been saying it was a matter of time until these started happening all over,
And,
because now
yeah.
the DMA has provided a template. So we'll see. But we move from lawyering up to rounding up. It's time for rumor roundup time.
Yeehaw.
We are indeed. That's what they say.
Whee!
So
Whee!
this is
What's the sound I
I've got
make for this
stuff
segment,
now.
Mike? I don't know. I don't know.
We're going back all the way to the end of December with some of these, Jason. I've been sitting on some rumors to round up.
Mega rumor roundup.
So this was according to Reuters at the end of last year that Apple is
Mm-hmm.
in talks with both ByteDance and Tencent to bring their AI models to the iPhone, like how ChatGPT is available elsewhere in the world. And this is important because in China, the government has to approve any generative AI models for public use. ChatGPT did not pass that and has not passed that. So Apple will have to work with one of these entities. I don't think that this stuff with ByteDance would preclude them from doing
Oh
this, but
no,
it
no.
it would make it weird. I don't know.
This is exactly like all the other iOS stuff that is like I support all of these social media things that are in the rest
Yeah.
of the world, and in China I support these other things that are in China only, and the other places aren't available. Like this is the iPhone in China is very localized to Chinese services because the Chinese
Yeah.
services are available and the rest of world services are not. And so that's what this is. This is actually not surprising at all. It's more interesting that I wonder if we'll get Chinese AI models connected to iOS faster than we'll get an alternative to ChatGPT connected to iOS in the rest of the world. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, but this is also another thing of it is still surprising to me that we haven't seen any other models
I
even hinted at in the US.
I know. I know. I think I predicted somewhere that that it may be WWDC at this point, where they
Yeah.
announce some new partners that'll be coming in the iOS 19 cycle.
Do you think there is any possibility that Apple gave OpenAI like a quiet exclusive? Like, we're going to
Sure.
open this up to everyone, but like not too fast.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's
We won't know.
possible. That there
It's
was a
not.
little like a little
Yeah.
wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing, saying you got it for the first 9 months or whatever.
Yeah, but it's also not
Sure.
possible to know that in a sense of like maybe Google was just like, no, we want people to install the Gemini app. We
It's
don't want
also
to.
That's also possible. Although
Yeah,
again, having access to iOS users is really
pretty
good,
helpful.
and
Yeah,
you would want that. And the OpenAI is very motivated to be there because the competitor Google has their own mobile operating system, so that's kind of rough. Access there a little bit maybe
yep,
harder, and so that's true. Then again, Apple may offer terms that OpenAI had to take, and Google's like, no.
yeah.
So we it's hard to tell from the outside.
Ming Chi Kuo's supply chain sources indicated to him, he wrote a memo about this, that demand for the iPhone 16 line is not indicating that Apple Intelligence has been a reason for a surge in device upgrades. This was a thing leading up to these phones coming out of like,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get a super cycle because people are so excited. And look, I don't know this and we can't really know this from Ming Chi Kuo's reporting, but I thought it was just an interesting detail from him of like, it's like gang they're not like making billions of these.
Now we're
Like
coming
it's not really done anything.
we're coming up to an analyst call and a quarterly earnings that'll happen later this week.
Yep.
Um, but and we'll talk about it next week.
Yep.
But um, in the last one, I think there's been a sense that that if Apple Intelligence was going to drive a super cycle, it was going to be over a long time because the features weren't rolling out. They were going to be rolling out slowly, and I think generally an understanding that it was probably going to be a year plus of Apple Intelligence kind of coming. And I think that these reports bear that out to a certain degree.
Yep.
However, I think it's interesting as somebody who watches sports and gets inundated with cell phone ads that all the carriers are flogging Apple Intelligence. Remember
Well,
how
of course they
last
are.
year everybody wanted titanium?
Yeah.
This year everybody wants Apple Intelligence. But the thing is, the truth is, it's just a proxy for there's a new iPhone, and maybe you
Yeah.
want the new iPhone. That and they got to give you a one-line reason, and the one-liner is with Apple Intelligence, and it's like that's it.
For all we know, they're told what they have to say.
Well, that's true. They're probably given. I mean, what does Apple give them? These are the marketing points for the Apple
Yeah.
for the iPhone is Apple Intelligence.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Designed for Apple Intelligence is what they're going for. Just like it was, I still remember that there was an AT&T ad last year. It's like you can get a new iPhone, titanium. I thought, well, you're trying. You get all. This is
Mm-hmm.
all you got is titanium. But they're not doing like camera control or whatever. They're like, oh, it's Apple Intelligence because they think that's going to drive it. And I do think it drives it to a certain degree, but the super cycle, the thing is, the super cycle is a I probably wouldn't upgrade my iPhone, but I'm going to do it right now because I got to have this new thing,
Yep.
as opposed to the usual upgrade cycle, which is just time for a new
It's
phone.
time. Yeah.
And what we have with Apple Intelligence, at least right now, feels it's very much more like a hedge against the competition than it is a gotta have it feature. And so we understand it strategically from Apple's point of view, but in terms of like consumers, I don't think it's resonating with them. And maybe as more features come online, it will. I think that that's maybe Apple's hope is that this is going to spur updates over time because there
Yep.
will become a moment where you'll go, oh, I got to have that feature. And
Yep.
that's why are there Genmoji ads? In part, it's because you're like, why can't I do that? And it's like, you got to get the new iPhone to do that. Oh, okay. And then they get the new iPhone. I don't
I
know.
really tried to make a good bucatini with some peas to send to you, and I sent you the best one I had, but I couldn't get it to look how it looked in the ad, which I was sad about.
Yeah, I sent you a horse wearing a suit and tie, though.
You sure did. You sure did. I think you
Mm-hmm.
keep doing that. Um, 9 to 5 Mac have found evidence for something called, quote, Apple Invites in the 18.3 beta. Quote, after analyzing the code, we believe the app is designed to help users organize meetings and in person events. Code suggests that the Invites app will integrate with iCloud and will even have a web version on iCloud.com. The new app also integrates with a new iOS 18 daemon, I love that, called GroupKit, which manages database models for groups of people. So this is essentially, there's like remnants of some kind of app, which maybe will
Mm.
come 18 or 19, that is to help people get together. And I find this to be a very peculiar task to tackle in an app outside of the calendar app.
Well,
And
that's
it
part of it.
reminds me of these like apps that appear every now and again. Like I saw people talking about clips recently because
Clips.
CapCut went away.
Mm-hmm.
But also there was like music memos was one. And like there's been these apps over time that honestly feel like somebody was told like you can make something, go make something, and they made it. The funny thing to me also is Apple Invites means a very specific thing to listeners of this show, which this is not. You know, new Apple Invites are out means it's time for an event, but no, it would mean there is an update to this application, which I think is very
So
funny.
yeah, so first off, I is this an app or is it a feature inside Calendar? Is the first question, right? Like, because I have to ask, like, why would it be a separate app other than just to keep it separate?
Mm-hmm.
I do this, and I'm not a person at a big business, but I have to do this for like podcasts and other things where I use strawpoll.com to do this. We used to use Doodle. Doodle's got kind of junky. Strawpoll's nice. Um, and Fantastical has a feature that does this, right?
Yeah.
I wonder with GroupKit though, it makes me also wonder if this is Apple realizing the world that it's in and building features with APIs, right? So like, well, we're going to roll out this feature, but we're also going to roll out an API so that third-party apps can use it because they know it's going to be required in the EU or whatever. And so
Mm-hmm.
they've built it with that in connected so that everybody can connect to the GroupKit API and understand
Yep.
how it's going. I don't know. It's interesting. There's definitely a use case here because Fantastical built their whole feature about this, and I use a website that does this, mostly because, again, one of the challenges here with all of these, and it'll be true with Apple's too, is that everybody's on their own system, and so it's not great. Like you could use Google Calendar or you could use Fantastical, but like then you got somebody who's not using that calendar, and then what do you do with them? And I don't know. It's complicated. All the way.
Yeah,
Also,
I always like
yeah.
the
Go ahead.
idea of these types of services more than I actually like to use these things. I think like for me, something that I never want to do is just leave like these huge chunks of time just like booked up on my calendar and I have to wait until someone agrees to do something. I think I don't know. But weird thing to just be like hanging out there in iOS 18.3.
Yeah.
Mark Gurman reported that Apple was considering adding a smart doorbell to its product lineup.
Hmm.
So this would be alongside the work that they're doing on the HomePod of a screen, and it also was previously reported a potential smart home camera. So this would kind of slot into that product lineup. Apple is considering also offering a smart lock that would work with this doorbell to automatically open your door with a face scan. So it would scan your face and basically Face ID like just open your door.
Okay.
This is an early stage product. 2026 would be the earliest it could arrive. And no matter what they end up shipping, this is basically, like Mark is saying, the smart home is going to see an aggressive push from Apple.
All right. So it's interesting because there are smart locks out there. So they would be adding to an existing category.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of smart lock technology is now moving to use ultra wideband, which
Yep.
allows automatic unlock
Yep.
without requiring. So, like, I used to have a smart lock that used Bluetooth, and it was pretty unreliable. And now I use one with NFC, and so I can tap my Apple Watch to unlock my door. But the next phase of this, and there were some announcements at CES about this, is ultra wideband, where as you walk up to your door, it unlocks because it knows it's you and that you're at your front door. And the reason you use ultra wideband for that is that ultra wideband knows where you are in 3D space, which means if you walk up to the if somebody knocks on your door and you walk up to it from the inside of your house, it doesn't unlock the door because that would be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because it knows you're inside, whereas like Bluetooth proximity and stuff doesn't know that. It only knows how close you are to the door. So it's good. This is interesting because what he's saying is, first off, it's going to use Face ID, which that's a little bit weird. It does mean that devices that aren't compatible with the lock could use Face ID to authenticate and open the door, I guess. This feels very much like little pieces of strategies that have not been coalesced into products. But I
Yeah.
think it's interesting that Apple seems to be rifling through its existing technology and categories in smart home to figure out what it might do, because that's a step up from where they've been before.
And again, it's like, look, Apple is a business that would like to make more money, right? That is essentially their function. Um,
Yep.
and they are struggling to make more money from
Yeah,
customers,
wearables,
right?
home
Like,
accessories as a category had grew a
yeah.
lot and now is basically flat.
Imagine if you could sell every iPhone customer $500 more equipment
Yeah.
from
Oh, it's
cameras,
smart. I mean,
a
I think a lot of
lock.
us have been saying they should have done this 5 years ago, but it's
Yes.
interesting that it
We
it
wanted
took
them
till
to do it
now,
5 years ago because the
five,
landscape has
five
been
or 10 years
rough.
ago.
You know,
Yeah,
like
right,
it's rough out there trying to
right.
get this stuff to work together.
And
And I
I would
am
say, yeah.
definitely a person who finds HomeKit to be good. Like if I can get products that work with
Mhm.
HomeKit, I do find that to be a good system. And trying to, as much as I can, find products that tie into HomeKit, I
Mhm.
find it to be more reliable than anything
Right.
else that I use.
Right. So and again, there's also just they get to stock their own stuff at the Apple Store, and it's perceived as premium, and it works with Apple stuff, and it's even if there are competitors out there, that's okay. Apple just needs to be perceived as being, well, this is easier, and I'll spend a little bit more because this is easier. They need to pick their spots, right? And that's
Hmm.
why like the smart doorbell kind of makes sense because it could integrate with your smart home and integrate with your devices and could have like intercom support and it would show the camera, and like I could see them doing that. Smart lock, it's like, what do they do to differentiate it from every other lock that's out there? And that's why the considering word is very interesting, because like
Yep.
maybe there's something Apple could add, but like I don't know, like I'm not sure Apple has a lot to add to locks that it doesn't
No.
already offer.
I mean, I think it's easy to forget the smart doorbell is the most successful smart home product.
Hmm.
The market is owned by Ring,
Yeah,
essentially, right?
yeah,
Like
so that's what
to
you
the
want.
point where a Ring doorbell is almost like a Kleenex, right? Like in that, like that is what people think of. People just want to get Ring doorbells because they want a doorbell with a camera in it, and so they just buy a Ring doorbell. And Ring offer a comprehensive suite of products.
Yeah.
So like I use the Ring security system in my studio. It's very easy to set up, and you can just buy a box that has a couple of cameras, an alarm system. The alarm system has a cell connection and also a battery in it in case either power or internet is lost. And I have a bunch of motion sensors that you just buy this thing, you set it all up. It all knows the pieces all know to talk to each other. The setup is very simple. It's like Ring have this market, which in Ring are owned by Amazon. Apple should want this. I mean, as we say, Apple
For
should have
sure.
done this years ago. They should have
Years
done
ago.
this years ago.
And
But
Amazon has
they're
been on it and bought Ring and
Mhm.
bought Eero, and like they've been on it in a
And they
way that
tried to
Apple.
buy iRobot, which I wouldn't be surprised
Right.
if they tried to do that again now.
Mm.
By the way, like with a different administration, because
Right.
that makes so much sense for
Yeah.
them. Like
And they're
I
competitors.
was personally bummed out and that didn't
That's
go
the other
through.
thing. There are competitors to iRobot now where they
Yep.
could really argue that it's a pretty competitive market. Yeah,
Yes, it is
I don't believe there's a Ring lock, right? They have partners that they work with, but I don't
correct.
think there's a Ring lock. And that's why I think Mark Gurman's report here is a little bit curious, because it's like, does it make sense? But he doesn't phrase it as they're doing it. He phrases it as they're considering it. And so what I choose to take away from this report is that Apple is actively looking at its collection of technologies and places they could be applied in smart home categories, and is trying to figure it out. But I think you're right. A doorbell with a camera is a smart place for them, as well as a security camera. I think these are smart places for Apple to go early on in this process, because not only are those good categories that sell pretty well, but imagine, attention, European regulators, start listening, stop listening. I don't know. I don't care. You can listen if you want, but listen. Imagine the special sauce, the secret sauce that Apple would add, right? Like the idea that Apple would make it the best experience possible if you have an iPhone and somebody rings your doorbell. Like you literally, your iPhone rings and you look at it and the picture and the video is on it, right? Like, and I know that some of that's in HomeKit now, but like, even if every doorbell got access to that feature, because here's the other thing, sometimes that does happen. What you want is not Apple. Let me put it this way. Apple's more motivated to do the work in their software on their devices to support an Apple product that's coming out. That's what motivates a lot of stuff and prioritizes a lot of stuff. So you end up like, even if you use a Ring doorbell or something, if Apple makes a doorbell, they're going to do all the stuff that Amazon has been wishing that they would do for the Ring system for years and that Apple's refused to do, but they're finally going to do it. And they're going to do it because now they've got a doorbell and suddenly it matters to them. Doorbell support on all Apple devices suddenly
Yep.
really matters to them. And so that could be good for the whole market, but certainly for Apple.
Lika Sunny Dixon has shared some images of what appears to be the iPhone SE 4.
Mm.
The images show a black and white model. I assume that these could also be Midnight and Starlight.
Sure, it
Who
depends on the
knows?
color of the anodization around the
Yeah.
aluminum, but yes.
There is a single large camera. Maybe it's the 48 megapixel sensor that was previously rumored.
Yeah.
This kind of like overall design has been corroborated by Evan Blass, who's another leaker who used to own EvLeaks, or still does. I don't even remember anymore. But they shared some images that appear to be more of what we'd expect to see on the Apple Store. So the
Right.
kind of like rendery images.
Render sound.
From these ones, you can also see a dynamic island.
Right. I think what I took away from this, and I think I saw some other people commenting on this on social media, is they could totally call this the iPhone 16e if they wanted
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
right? Because it looks like an iPhone 16. It does. It's a
It
slimmed
does.
down, decontented iPhone 16. And I
With
know
that
people are
thing
like,
they
do you
do on
want
the
to?
glass where they kind of color the glass in the two-tone way, like it's got
Yeah,
all of those little touches. It looks like a modern iPhone, like really
yeah,
looks like a
yeah.
modern iPhone.
And I know I've heard from people who said, but why would they give it a number? Because they keep this thing around so long. I'm like, well, they keep a lot of things around so long, but also, what if they didn't keep it around so long? What if there was an e-phone every year or every other year in the spring? Why not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I am still of the I am in the I don't think calling it a 16E is a good thing to do unless they do what you're suggesting that they
Yeah,
do.
that's what I'm just saying is that there's an assumption wrapped in the they won't do that because, and you have to question that assumption because it's possible that they've decided, well, this SE thing, what if we just made it part of the line and we kept it around for a couple of years? But yeah, the other way to do it is just call it SE. It floats out of time and is what it is. But what's great about this is that it's been a long time since the iPhone 10.
Yeah.
And the SE has been back in the pre-time, the before iPhone 10 time, and
Hmm.
it's essentially an iPhone 8, and now it won't be anymore, and I think that's great.
Yep. Something I meant to mention. There is a slight discrepancy between these two images, which is where the flash is placed.
Ah,
So in what appears to be the photo, the flash is on the right side, and the render one, the flash is underneath, and the render one does look more real, but they're coming at it from what appears to be pretty close proximity. Maybe we have two different versions of what this phone could have looked like,
yeah.
but they look similar enough to at least give us an idea. I do think the Evan Blast ones make the most sense to me for what I would imagine this phone to look like. But nevertheless,
Also, I think maybe what you're seeing here is the limitations of the leaks information, right?
yeah,
Where it's like they don't know where the flash is,
no.
so or one of them doesn't
Sometimes
know
you
where the
just get
flash
the
is.
basic idea as
You get the
opposed to
shape. You get the shape because
for a
it's coming from
case.
for a case, right? I mean, I can't believe we're back there, but yes, right? Like for a case, because the case people know, they know. I don't know how they know, but they know.
The Switch rumors were all true. You know, like that all came from
Yeah,
case stuff, and that was all basically 100% correct.
yeah.
These case companies, they must pay so much money.
Oh, the
Like
espionage. Oh my
I
god.
genuinely believe these case companies, they pay people kind of amounts of money that these people could afford to get fired. Like I think that's kind of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Um, and again, because the economies are so messed up, right? Like how
Once a
much money a
year.
case company could pay
Yeah,
compared to what somebody's salary is.
once a year, somebody wins the lottery, which is
Yeah.
they get the money from the case company to leak the
Yeah.
dimensions, and then they're
Yeah.
fired, and
Yep.
they take their money and they go to Singapore
Yep.
or Macau. They go to
Specific,
Macau and
very
they put it all down
specific.
on a roulette wheel. I'm creating a whole thing where like
A whole
they enter
thing.
a shadowy world of gamblers and
Jason,
outlaws.
I think you've just outlined your next novel.
Wow.
I think you just
The
did it. I
adventure
think this
of
is
the
it.
iPhone case leaker.
Yeah, I think you've just started it out.
Yeah.
I have more. I have more.
That's wait. I just want to go with this for a second. I'm
Okay,
imagining a James
please.
Bond movie where he's at like a
Oh.
high stakes table, like a baccarat table or something like
Uh-huh.
that, and at the table with him is of course a Bond villain, right, like a super villain who's like created like an array of satellites that are going to be
Mm-hmm.
used to control lasers that control
Yep.
robots that are like gonna replace the leaders of the world, let's say,
Okay.
human-like
Sure.
robots. Okay, that person's at the table because they love a game of baccarat. Who doesn't? A
Who
completely
doesn't?
impenetrable game that doesn't make any sense. But also at the table is some guy from a factory who leaked case specs and has decided to live the high life. That guy dies.
Oh no, that's a shame.
Sorry,
So
it's a
is
Bond
this one
movie.
of those
That guy dies.
stories where we think we're following someone, but now we're following someone else?
That's right. It's like, well, this case
Interesting.
leaker seems really interesting. Oh, who's this British agent with a
Oh,
license to
so
kill?
it turned out to be a James Bond novel that you were right.
It exactly, exactly.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Look at
Yeah.
that. Incredible
Enjoy.
stuff. Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Mac Rumors is reporting that leaks coming from a Weibo user by the name of Digital Chat Station, which is great,
Mm-hmm.
say
Great.
that the cameras on the iPhone 17 Pro, all three of them, will have 48 megapixel sensors. So the upgrade here is the 5 times telephoto lens will go from 12 megapixels to 48 megapixels. Safe to say we could probably get some improved image quality
Yeah.
from that.
Bring it
And
on.
also, the iPhone 17 Pro will have an upgraded selfie camera from 12 megapixels to 24
That's great.
megapixels.
Well, and keep in mind that 48 also means that you can bin at 24 and get higher
Yep.
quality that way, which is really nice. So there's a lot
Do
of different
you
options you can
think
do here.
that could be over 5 times zoom then?
Could be.
Like they could maybe go,
They could
I wouldn't
call it
say to
more.
10, but yeah, but it's like how The 2x zoom is a bin version of the 1x right now
Right.
because they do. So maybe I don't know. Maybe someone could tell me. Maybe they could say it's a 7 or 8 times telephoto because they could bin it. I don't know if that would do it, but maybe that'd be fun.
Maybe.
And Chance Miller at 9 to 5 Mac has shared some leaked images also from Weibo, along with some of his own sourcing that gives us a look at what could be the design of the back of the iPhone 17 Air. These
Oh.
leaks show a supposed images of the back case that feature a full width bar across the top housing the camera that,
Hmm.
yes, looks just like the Google Pixel from
Mm.
like the last few years. Here's what I don't understand. All of the rumors, including this reporting, says there's one camera. So why would they need to do this?
It's a good question.
Like, because we just saw what could be the iPhone SE, where there's one camera and it's just the one camera. So what is going on here that they would need this entire bar for one camera? Is it like they're also shoving some other stuff up there to make the phone super thin, right? Like there's some other components housed in that area. Like I find it peculiar, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't understand what we're seeing here, but again, we may not know what we're seeing here, right? Like
Yes, exactly.
there may be, who knows what's going on there that we are meant not to understand. I don't know.
What I would say though is, I mean, honestly, as well, it could just be aesthetic, right?
It
And
could be.
because then if you saw someone using that phone, you know they have that new one, right?
The new
Because
thin
that one
iPhone.
looks dramatically different to the other
Yeah.
phones.
Yeah, could be. It
And
could be that simple.
could be establishing a new design language that could be used on folding phones in the future or something like that, which is
Could
what we
be.
believe this phone could be anyway.
Totally could be.
And whilst this isn't in rumor roundup, I thought it would at least fit here.
Well,
Samsung.
I'm so glad that you put this in here because I
Okay,
was about
great.
to say, meanwhile,
Meanwhile,
we've after all of
Samsung
our discussion of a
unpacked.
thin iPhone coming,
Yeah.
what might Samsung have introduced?
Well, they
Uh,
have spoken
mm,
about and shown off the
yes.
Galaxy S25 Edge, which is expected to be coming to the market maybe this year. They're a
Yeah.
bit cagey about it.
Mhm.
At the Unpacked event where they did have the S25 line, they had this, which is a supposedly, based on rumors, a 6.4 millimeter thin phone, but nobody was
Mm-hmm.
allowed to touch it and they didn't give
Nope.
specs.
Love it.
So basically, what it seems is Samsung have been working on this and they wanted people to see it before Apple gets the 17 Air out.
Sure. Sure. Or, I mean, we don't know. It's possible that they've had super thin phones in their lab for a while,
Yes.
and nothing happened with them. I think the most likely scenario is they're tinkering with it, and then they hear, oh, Apple's going to do it, and they're like, well,
Mhm.
then we're going to do it too, right? Like,
Well,
I'm
because
not
we
saying that
know they can do it because
we know
they
can
have
do it.
because
They
they've
have-
had to make
they have
phones this
folding
thin for
phones.
the fold
Yeah.
line.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I do think I'm just going to put it out there. The reason this phone got put into what will probably be production is because of the rumors that Apple is doing it. And Samsung is just shameless about that, right? So they're like, yeah, we got a thin phone. Sure. Yep. Got it. Here it is. Don't touch it. Here it is. So bless their hearts. Like I would expect nothing less from Samsung, honestly. Samsung, just keep being you, I guess.
They're doing what they're doing.
They're
Oh,
doing
I
what
just
they
want
do.
to say, like they also unveiled a headset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing everyone online being like, copied the Vision Pro homework. No, it looks like the Meta Quest Pro. It doesn't look like the Vision Pro. If you like, the only way it looks like the Vision Pro is that the colors are the same. If you actually
Right.
look at the design of that and the Quest Pro, it looks way more like the Quest Pro. I know this because I am the fool who bought one.
You have
right?
a Quest Pro. Yeah.
So just if you're interested, like you can go look at that. One of the things that I found that I thought was saw about this, like, how come all of these thin phones are maybe gonna be happening, right? There's an MKBHD video that I watched a few weeks ago about a OnePlus phone, and one of the things that Marquez was talking about was this new battery technology that is enabling phones to get thinner and also have really good battery life. So this might be
Ah,
something which is now going to unlock these thin phones. I think it's called like it's like silicon something or something like that. It's not super important, the technology, but that even though these phones are getting really thin, they are still having excellent battery life because of this new battery technology. So that
love
I
it.
think 2025, I think is going to be the year of thin phones,
Bring it
and this
on.
OnePlus phone kind of started that.
That's great. And the truth is, this is something we talk about with computers a lot, which is even the M1 MacBook Air at Walmart is more computer than most people need.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. That's just the truth of it. And that changes the dynamic, right? It changes the
Yeah.
dynamic of who buys a computer, what they buy, and how long they hold it, because you've got the technology has sort of outstripped sort of like what people use this stuff for. I think that is also true of phones. Obviously, like some people really care about cameras and some people really care about the display and all of that. But creating something that's an outlier in terms of its size to make
Uh-huh.
it thin and look different, it's going to be limited, right? It's going to be limited in terms of its functionality because it's the thin phone. We know that the display is not going to be as great, and the camera, there's only going to be one and all that. But we've gotten to the point now where I feel like you can differentiate like this and it's fine, because I don't think anyone's going to say, "Oh, I really would like a thin phone, but I can't do my work on a thin phone." Right? They might say, "I want the nicer camera or whatever." Right? Like I get it, but that phone's going to be great. And if that's
Yep.
the phone you want, you will get it and you will be happy with it. And that's a nice kind of enabling technology thing. Now, especially if its battery life isn't terrible, right? If its battery life is also still pretty great and it's
Mm-hmm.
that thin, that's amazing too. So that's the advantage of this tech getting better, is it's not just that the base tech becomes more powerful. It means that the outliers are still perfectly usable. And that means your outliers get more interesting.
Silicon carbon.
Mm,
That's the battery
love it.
technology
Those are
that is
those are
enabling this.
elements.
Yep.
Those are
Put them
elements.
together, and what do you get? Long-lasting
Batteries,
batteries.
thin
Everybody
phones,
knows
skinny
that.
phones. Sure.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Vitally. Vitally is bringing in a new era for customer service productivity with their all in one platform. Vitaly's collaborative workspace combines your customer data with all the capabilities you expect from today's project management and work platforms. With Vitally, you can measure the effectiveness of OKRs and operational strategies on customer outcomes at scale thanks to their goals feature. Goals allows you to track the progress of your accounts against target metrics, meaning you can standardize goal setting across the board so you know exactly how effective your processes really are. And best of all, it's designed for today's customer success team. That is why Vitally operates with unparalleled efficiency, improves net revenue retention, and delivers best in class customer experiences. Vitally is offering a free pair of AirPods Pro for every upgrade listener who books a qualified meeting. So if you're a customer success decision maker, schedule your call by visiting vitally.io/upgradefm. That is vitally.io/upgradefm for a free pair of AirPods Pro when you schedule a qualified meeting. And that link is in the show notes too. Our thanks to Vitally for their support of this show and Relay. Let's finish out with some Ask Upgrade questions to end today's show. Patrick says, with Apple doubling down on health and fitness, particularly with the Apple Watch and maybe new health devices, where do you see Apple Fitness Plus heading in the next few years? Could we see deeper integrations with third party equipment or more personalized coaching features leveraging AI and health data? What do you think?
Oh, it's a great place for there to be more. Fitness Plus is still pretty limited in that it's classes is what they're doing, and those classes are good. I've done them. Lauren does them. Um, I I, I keep thinking that there are other ways to motivate and gamify fitness that Fitness Plus could probably do that it doesn't do. And I don't know. I mean, their gamification is essentially that heart rate bar, the effort bar that shows where you are among people who do it. And I don't even know if it's made up. I don't. But
Yep.
I keep thinking like that's one of the secret sauce things about Peloton was I mean, not only are there live things, but also like they've gamified it where you can sort of see where you are in the group. I like the idea of doing other fitness stuff where you're comparing it to your friends and challenging your friends. They've got some challenges for activity, but like it would be interesting to see other things where it's like you're doing the same workout as your friends, and you know you're uh you're sharing your progress and comparing it to them, and there's like, because people do react to that. I don't know, more content is always good. I don't know, I think there's opportunities for them to innovate, and we talked about the whole AI coach thing. You'd integrate that too, I think.
Yeah. So one of the things that Apple recently did was a partnership with Strava. So they're offering a Fitness Plus trial to Strava users, but they're also using what's called Strava athletes in Fitness Plus content. So these are people that are, because Strava is also kind of like a social network. Like you can follow athletes and
Yeah.
see what their workouts are. And so now popular Strava athletes, that's hard to say, will be featured in Fitness Plus content. And this is something I imagine we're doing just purely on the Fitness Plus side, finding popular fitness content creators and bringing them in and giving them classes and like this, and then they can offer Fitness Plus trials to their audience, for example, or working with other companies like this, because this enables them to kind of, it's the Peloton thing again, as you were mentioning, right? Like, not that one of Peloton's other things is that people like certain instructors and like follow them on social media and they want to do their classes. And that is also part of where Fitness Plus came from. Like, I remember when Fitness Plus started, seeing people excited that someone they were following on Instagram was an instructor. So, like, Apple
Mm.
went out and found people that were already content creators in fitness and hired them to be instructors. And I think that that is a very smart way of bringing people to the service, because
Oh yeah.
you're finding people already engaging, already have an audience, and bringing them in. And I can imagine doing a lot more of that too.
Personalities are huge. I didn't understand it. I know that people talked about like, oh, the Peloton coaches and all that, but like it's huge. Lauren does Pilates on Fitness Plus, and she knows the different instructors and like their styles and what they
Yep.
do. And she was saying to me
Yep.
the other day, she said that is the hardest Pilates workout I've ever had. And she said, well, the instructor is the guy who always makes it hard. And I thought, this is really interesting, right? You're making a connection to this guy
Mm-hmm.
because of the way he does Pilates. And I made that connection with when I was using it for bike workouts, which I'm not anymore. I can go. I have a dog I have to walk every day, and like so I'm not using the bike and Fitness Plus anymore. I'm fortunate to live in a place where I almost never can't go outside to exercise. So, but the bike people, I gravitated towards specific instructors as well. I'm like, oh yeah, what else does Kim have for me or whatever, and like it was it is powerful. So the more personality based stuff, the more that you can bring in people who people recognize or people are going to have an affinity for. I think that's a huge part of it too.
Andrew wrote in and said, recent rumors are saying Apple will finally put a 120 hertz refresh rate screen on the non Pro iPhone 17. But I can't shake this feeling
Team.
that Apple in 2025 won't go that high and will cap non Pro phones at 90 hertz. Mark Gurman's recent report that Apple is looking to raise the refresh rates on iMacs and the iPad Air to 90 hertz makes me feel even more certain about this. With Apple keeping ProMotion exclusive to Pro level devices, what is your guys' take on the future of this? Will 120 hertz come to other phones, or will 90 hertz be the new 60? So I'll start off by saying I think Andrew is actually conflating Mark Gurman's reporting with our reporting.
Oh.
That was a thing that we had from an anonymous source that made its way out onto many parts of the internet. This is back in November,
Mm-hmm.
where we had someone who I feel pretty confident in, who's given us some stuff in the past, write in to say that Apple is working on a higher refresh rate LCD display with a new panel that's fixed at 90 hertz, and it would be used in a next generation iMac and Studio display, and that we also, we could see that maybe being something used for the phones, but some people were saying that there would be higher refresh rate ProMotion on other phones. My feeling on this is that 90 hertz will be the standard for non-pro devices, and that pro devices will get 120. That's what I
Yeah,
think will happen.
I think you're probably right. Keep in mind that when you increase the refresh rate, it's not just the display; it's also the graphics processor because they have to generate more frames.
And I think
And
it takes a battery hit too.
And absolutely it does, because that it's generating it's drawing more and it's generating more frames. So I
Hmm.
think 90, that sounds to me like it's the display equivalent of Apple increasing the base RAM of a laptop. It's Apple saying, okay, we want this to be higher than it is. We've let this for a while now. What do we do? Because we want to have our margins on our low end products, but we wanted to, it's probably too low and we probably should have done it years ago, but we saved it because of margins. And that's what gets you to 90 is
Hmm.
it's better. Everybody feels better about it, but it's not quite the same as the Pro Motion. They'll give it another name, some other weird name, Smooth Motion. And yeah,
It will
sounds really
probably
realistic
just
to me.
be part of the specs of
Yeah,
this current
yeah.
generation
Look,
liquid retina
we
display.
increased the refresh rate on the display.
Yeah,
Yay.
and that will just be the end of it. But
Yeah,
I do think it's time. I mean, honestly, it was time a long time ago.
it
Like
it was. It
60
was.
hertz is wild to still be doing on a phone that is the
Yeah.
price the way the iPhone is. Tom wrote in to say, do you use dictation in your daily workflows? If so, how? And I actually wanted to ask a secondary question to this, which is, have you ever tried dictation as a way to write?
Oh, I have. I struggle with it. I know people who've done this. David Pogue, book author and former New York Times guy from way back. David Pogue has horrible RSI, and everything he wrote was dictated with
Mm.
Dragon
That's what
back in the
David
day. He
Sparks
actually had a
uses. Like David Sparks, well, I don't know if he still uses it because I know he's been pretty happy with what Apple's been doing recently too. But I know that Sparky is a big dictation guy too.
yeah. So Pogue would literally, when he was writing features for Macworld for me, um, Pogue would literally have a PC running Dragon because the PC version was the only
Oh,
one
that's funny.
available, and for a while it was the only good one. And he would literally use it to dictate while he was using his Mac to, write books about the Mac or write feature articles for Macworld about the Mac. He would dictate it into a PC. I never really understood it. I've tried it. First off, as everybody is tired of hearing me say, I type real fast. So
Mm.
that's one of my advantages is my brain kind of goes and my fingers go and words come out, which has been really good for me career wise to have that
Helpful.
little, like, you go from the brain to the fingers to the letters on the screen. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Um, it's funny that this came up though, because on David Sparks' recommendation, I have been playing around with an app called Super Whisper. And Super Whisper on its surface is yet another Whisper
Oh
interface.
yeah,
Whisper is the
yeah, yeah,
text to
yeah,
speech thing, right? Like there's Mac
yeah.
Whisper and all that. And you're like, okay, I mean, how many of these? I build a version of Whisper from the source that's a C++ version and put it in a shortcut. I actually do that and it's really fast. Um, but Super Whisper is more than that though, because the developer of Super Whisper has layered multiple things on top of Whisper. So he uses Whisper to do the text to speech, and you can choose your different or speech to text. He uses different versions of it that will take your narration, your dictation, and will turn into something. And then he built a context layer on top of it that, based on where you are, it will put your Whisper output through an LLM to clean it up. And you can choose
Hmm.
that LLM. You can have, various. I think it's mostly ChatGPT with custom prompts if you want to. Plus, he's baked in some prompts, so you can like have a prompt. Like Sparky was writing about this. Like you have a prompt that tells it what you want your emails to be like. It always activates when you're in your email program, and you use the same hotkey, but it knows you're in your email program, and so the post processing LLM rewrites your email based on that kind of messy Whisper transcription. Um, in the context of an email. And if you're in a different app, it can rewrite it in a different context. I think this is really smart, and it takes it above what a general kind of like Whisper port, put a Mac interface around it, would do, because he's trying to make it a productivity utility.
Mm.
Um, it's a really interesting idea, and I tried it. And I would say, so I tried it on an article I wrote this week about moving to the MacBook Pro that I wrote and posted on Six Colors, or last week. Sorry, last week. Um, and I ended up sitting at my desk, hunched over the keyboard with my eyes closed, kind of like saying things. But I wanted to try it. It was okay. It was okay, and the output was pretty good from Super Whisper, although every time I stopped, it appended a sentence at the very end that I didn't say, and that was hilarious and wrong every
What
time.
do, what do you mean? Like what?
Well, because the LLMs, Whisper especially, if there's silence, Whisper sometimes just hallucinates things.
Oh,
And then the
wow.
hallucination gets passed on to the ChatGPT that rewrites it into a sentence, and it will continue the thought that was my last thought in a way that's bizarre, and
That's
and it's
incredible.
it's amazing. And Sparky's talked about
Oh
how he says
man.
like don't write a sign off for the email. Do not write the sign off for the email. I have a signature file. Don't do it. And he says it still does it. Like some of the time, it still does it
I
because
love
these are
you.
LLMs.
Bye.
However, I will say,
It's kind of
you
like
know,
me, actually. I think I do that a lot. Like just me as a human. Like I just say an extra sentence that maybe I shouldn't have said. I do
yeah,
that a lot.
yeah, okay. Well, you're the LLMs are getting better all the time. So, I did that, and it was pretty good in that it basically got what I said right, and it was written in a style that was way better than what like Whisper generally would do. It did a better job.
Mm.
So that's really interesting. Um, the truth is, I mean, could I, if I couldn't type anymore, I could use it and probably do my job, like David Pogue. I could do that,
Yeah.
but I went back through the stuff that I dictated and basically edited it, which is this is the thing about writing versus talking. For dear upgrade listeners, you get to hear us talk, and we're just thinking as we go. We don't have a script. We've got some notes, but we don't have a script. We just talk. When I write something that you see on Six Colors or Macworld or wherever, it's one layer of processing beyond the talking. And I got to witness that because I just was like, so I get this thing and my daughter's room is heated and my garage isn't, and I kind of like dictated the whole thing. And then I went through it and I was like, oh no, we're gonna add like this is gonna be, I get to my point here faster, and I'm gonna make this joke here, and I'm gonna put a footnote here and all of
Mm.
that. And that's that extra level where I write a sentence and then I think, meh, and I back up and all that. And you don't do that when you're talking. So I found it interesting. I might do it again. It might be a good as a like a brain change of pace when I've like this happens a lot where I'm like walking the dog or I'm taking a shower or something and I start thinking of a story I could write and I'm thinking what it is. And I think there's something to be said for just getting that thing that I've thought through out and then turning it into something that I would write. But getting that first kind of monologue out and then writing it from there. So I
Yeah.
could see using this. I'm not going to use it every day because I do type fast and it gives me precision over what I write that I don't otherwise have. But if I've got that thing, like literally, I will sometimes sit in the shower and I'll be listening to a podcast. I'll be listening to Connected or ATP or something like that, and I'll hear something and it will send me off in a direction of like, oh, that would be an interesting story to write. And I
Mm.
will start writing it in my head. And I'm like, well, I'm in the shower. Like, where's that going right now? And I could see the value, not necessarily even doing it in the shower, but when I get out of retelling that story that I just told myself, so I could get it down as a starting point, and then make the words better. But so I'm interested in this. I feel like this technology is getting a lot better, but what it doesn't do is provide that extra layer that seeing your words and then fixing them. That's another part of writing for me that it can't do. It can't do.
Something that I use dictation for is not too dissimilar to what you were just talking about. So something I have to do relatively frequently is to try and come up with marketing copy for something. Right. So like this is especially for my product work where I'm trying to describe what a product is like to use. And the easiest way for me to do that is to have the product in my hands and talk aloud and just talk about what it is like to use the thing that I'm using. Like, why is it good? What can you do with it? And so I will just like open up Notion, just turn on iOS dictation and just start talking. And I like that. So I'm just kind of getting my thoughts out and I'm not really editing them at that point. Like it's just getting it all out there and then I can go in and refine it. So I do that. I have been finding recently that usually if I want to search something on ChatGPT, I just dictate it because
Uh,
ChatGPT's inbuilt dictation is incredibly good.
mm.
Incredibly good. obviously, right?
Well,
Like,
I mean, I imagine it's Whisper that's doing
yes,
the
it's
back end
Whisper,
work there, because
with a
it's
lot of
Whisper
cleanup.
is an OpenAI thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very good. So like it's the
Yeah.
fastest way for me to search things with ChatGPT, because usually it is a very colloquial search, which is what I'm doing. And so I will more often than not find myself doing that. And this isn't the like where you're having a conversation with it. This is just like on next to the search box, you can just press a microphone and just speak, and then it just dictates it. So I do that too. If you would like to dictate some feedback, follow up, or questions for us, go to upgradefeedback.com. You can just dictate into that text box if you would like, but you can also send in your questions. Got loads of Ask Upgrade questions, and I would still like more. So if you have a question you would like for us to answer in a future episode, just go to upgradefeedback.com and you can do that. I want to thank our members who support us every week with Upgrade
Yes.
Plus. Please go to getupgradeplus.com to learn more. As I said, we're going to talk about Jason canceling Netflix in today's Upgrade Plus segment. If you would like to watch this show on YouTube, you can do so. Just search for the Upgrade Podcast. I would like to thank Vitally for their support of this episode, but most of all, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Until then, say goodbye, Jason.
Goodbye, Mike.